Good afternoon, everyone. Bosse, Jian, thanks for joining me here today. I just wanted to say, menswear is very complicated. I think it's a very neglected segment of the fashion world because it's growing. It's obviously not as large as the women's wear market, but it's also because it's really complicated. And it's often very much not talked about. And so when we were talking about what we want to talk about here at Fashion Asia Hong Kong, I thought, you know what, let's do it. I thought maybe first, Bosse, Jian, you could talk a little bit about your background first and do a little introduction, because I think it's really important to set the conversation. Bosse?
I'm going to start. Thank you. So I'm Bosse. I'm the director for Menswear, Womenswear, and Childrenswear at Selfridges. My career really started in Germany on the shop floor. I then moved to Paris. I worked for Comme des Garçons for 2 years in the head office, then moved to London to study, worked at Dover Street Market for 9 years, and then 13 years ago joined Selfridges. That's my career in a nutshell.
That was everything. Well, thanks for having me, Blake. I'm Jian DeLeon, the men's fashion director at Nordstrom. Prior to joining Nordstrom, I've been there for 5 years now. I was in media, American media. So I started at a magazine called Complex, which is now the whole thing in its own right. And then I worked at American GQ. Right before I joined the team at Nordstrom, I was the editorial director at Highsnobiety for about 5 years. And then now I'm at Nordstrom.
Yeah, I think you both have a really interesting backgrounds. And really what you guys have done have kind of propelled menswear, shall we say, into a new space. The menswear segment has grown from classic tailoring, it expanded into luxury. Now we talk about menswear, we really look at streetwear, sportswear. And I wanted to understand kind of initially, as both buyers, how do you approach menswear buying? Maybe, Bosse, you can start and compare it to what you do at womenswear.
For sure, yeah. So the journey in men's and Selfridges really started for me roughly 8-9 years ago. And we looked at our business overall. And we always start with a flagship in London. And it was very segmented. So there was, very traditional department store segments of tailoring. We used to have a designer section as well. And, when I started, our CEO at the time, she really encouraged me to look at it overarchingly and globally. And we created this idea of the world of menswear at the time. And we really wanted to encourage the customers and their men and their women that shop our menswear department and floor to look at it holistically, so that you can buy a pair of shoes. It can be expensive, it can be more affordable, but we really wanted our customers to approach men's holistically across the floor and really blend as well the ideas of adjacencies and really think customer first. That's what we try to do.
At the beginning, we'll get to Jian, but at the beginning, were you already looking at buying across all these different kind of categories, or are you really kind of more traditionally looking at I'm saying it's Selfridges, traditionally more like suiting and luxury?
Well, as the job as a director, you have to look after everything, right? But the challenge was really to bring it all together and to blend that journey. And somebody that wants to wear streetwear or sportswear on the weekend, they need still some work clothes and something a little bit more refined or tailored, for the week and for the job. If you're a lawyer, then there's still some, codes that you have to abide by. But yeah, that idea of the world of men's is something that we looked at and really started it as well. And it wasn't an overnight thing either. So it started 9 years ago and probably took 3-4 years to really be completed as well. Customers are the judge of it, but yeah, we were able to grow our menswear business quite significantly over that period of time. So I think it worked okay.
Jian, maybe you can talk a little bit about the transition from editorial space into buying and how you maybe apply that to your buying role now.
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the really fundamental shifts in menswear as a whole is, within the past couple of decades, it's gone from what does the man know he has to wear, like the notion of the uniform, to this more creative expression of what does he want to wear. So I think menswear is interesting in the sense that trends and relevance are largely in a context, right? The guy has where to work. It might be around a sporting event, and we've certainly seen this embrace of sports figures around the world, and how that elevates menswear. I mean, look at Ralph Lauren. He just debuted he's worked for Team USA, or they've had the deal for Team USA doing the Olympic uniforms for the past 20 years. But, it's a big moment. It's a global moment that elevates sport and style in that intersection. And everything from the explosion of F1 to the continued, dominance of basketball, and now the World Cup coming next year. Like, sports is naturally something that men are into, and so as style and fashion have become more and more a part of that, it's only natural that the menswear customer is also more interested in shopping and clothing.
You said that men are starting to know what they want.
They're starting to think about what they want. I don't really think they fully know what they want.
But both of you,
they want to be told what they want.
They want to be told. I mean, and that's what I guess your role before in editorial was kind of navigating that and placing it out there. Your role ultimately now is also to tell people. I mean, Bosse, when you were working at Comme des Garçons, working at Dover Street, one of the best, we'll say, retailers in the world, or most kind of progressive retailers in the world, you are applying what you learned there on Selfridges and maybe giving men a new way to think.
For sure. I think there is a responsibility, as a buyer or buying director, to introduce our customers to newness and to independent brands, and to what Jian said, like to be sort of, the place where men or customers can come and discover something. And I think that's something that's also important to me personally, because there's a lot of big brands out there and you can buy them everywhere, but really what makes the difference to a store, I think overall, is that point of difference and is that sense of discovery. And yes, Dover Street does a super good job in that as well. And but there are many independent stores globally, and department stores as well, that do that sense of discovery and newness that is so important. I haven't been to Hong Kong in a few years, so my first stop was go to Joyce, check it out. Had a conversation about the other stores that are in town as well, and I will definitely go and check them out. And that's a responsibility I think that a store has, and a buyer definitely should take to heart.
So discovery and then telling people what to wear, both of them.
A little bit. The analogy I use a lot is there was a New York Times article about Oreo cookies and why they do novelty flavors. And the fact of the matter is, every time Oreo introduces, whether it's like a Coca-Cola flavored Oreo or a Swedish Fish flavored Oreo, sales of regular cookies go up around 20%. And that is a perfect analogy for the menswear business. It's you introduce some different color multipliers, you introduce some newness and novelty, and it makes the customer feel more comfortable from buying. Maybe this time it's a textured navy blue suit or a slightly higher blue than he was doing before. But you're establishing that he's making the right decision and shopping with you, but also providing a context for what else is out there in terms of trend.
Do you find that your customers are starting to take more risks when they're seeing sport like 100%. Athletes, as you're saying?
I mean, you look at the dominance of, let's say, like olive green right now, or the color brown. Like, if I were to tell you that so many American customers are now wearing brown suits in a way that they weren't before, when it was obviously like a sea of navy and black. So even from just the richness of how the menswear palette has evolved, even within the last 5 years, I think is a testament to how the customer's just becoming a little bit more adventurous than what you would think a stereotypical menswear customer would gravitate towards.
I mean, great. That's great for everyone, no? I wanted to talk a little bit about this notion of streetwear and sportswear. It's a constant conversation within the menswear market, and now ultimately also in the women's market, but it really started here. I wanted to understand maybe if you can define what that means for you.
I can give it a go, yeah. So I think... We'll try. Sportswear really has a background in performance, right? Like, there is a purpose to sportswear overall. There is, certain specifics that fabrics need to have in order to perform. That now is blending over to streetwear, and streetwear is sort of, it's not the opposite, but it's linked, and sportswear can really be streetwear. The other way around doesn't really work that way, right? Like, streetwear doesn't really perform more than it looks good. So I think that would be my definition of it. And And it's interesting because one really influences the other, because there's different types of sports, right, that are really involved in the creation of specific garments, because form follows function, exactly. And that is forever evolving as well, of what sports are in right now. And I think we're seeing that moment right now where there's, maybe millennials are growing up a little bit, and actually golfing and tennis is becoming a big impact in streetwear, actually, which is quite interesting to see.
Are you finding the same, Jian?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to Boss's point, I think what it comes down to is that sportswear is more along the lines of what something's meant for, and then streetwear comes down to what it means to the customer and the community that adopts it, right? It's like, you look at a tracksuit, it means something different in the context of an Oasis concert versus if you're actually, about to go on the court and need something over your basketball uniform.
But then when you look at certain collaborations between luxury brands and sportswear brands, some of them are functional, and some of them are very much just an aesthetic or a branded experiment, shall we say. Where is the positioning for that for you guys within the market?
Well, I think Jian's point on the Oreo cookies was quite poignant for that, because it really introduces excitement into, a collaboration that, has never happened before. And I think that brings the customer back as well to the stores. I think that's the purpose of it. And I think there's some really amazing collaborations that have come out recently. On the other hand, there's as well some collaborations that are a little bit more collaborations for the sake of it. But yeah, the customer and the client, you can't really fool them. Like, they know what they want, and they will find out what is a good collaboration and what is authentic, versus one that's maybe just for the sake of it.
I didn't ask you, Jian, what's your definition of streetwear versus sportswear?
I just talked about that. I think streetwear is a bit more context heavy, and it's more community oriented. I think, you look now at what the streetwear community, quote unquote, it's such like a interesting term, right? Because on the one hand, you have someone like Bobby Kim, who founded the Hundreds, who's now overseeing consumer products at Disney, to last week, Nigo, one of like the godfathers of Japanese streetwear, just had his IPO of Human Made, right? And I think the valuation was at 486 million US, which was crazy. So, it's sort of this movement that accidentally became an industry, I would say. And so there's a lot of context and a lot of deep diving you could do around that. But it was something that was never supposed to be this gigantic category that managed to become a category, I would say.
Why do you say it wasn't supposed to be?
Started with, for me, the way I define streetwear is it stems from repurposing and subverting existing items, whether it's a T-shirt. Like the T-shirt, someone like Virgil Abloh would have said, is kind of like the essence of what a streetwear brand starts with, right? From the Supreme box logo to the bathing ape, right? Or even like a band shirt, right? It's like what it means and how it becomes something more than just a T-shirt to the people who, come to define their sense of style around it, is why it's become such a good, interesting topic of conversation, because it requires a different type of fluency other than just how clothes are made or the fashion world in particular. It's digging into culture, music, and subculture and beyond.
Yeah, and to support that point, I think streetwear has really come out of subcultures, right? And that's when Jian said, like, it's not supposed to be, is sort of the anti-commercial, nature of streetwear that is therefore not really meant to be an industry, right? Like that's I think a really good point. And social media and the way that some brands have grown and been able to grow, I think is credit maybe to those subcultures as well, that they are so successful now, and it became an industry, and that's maybe what it is.
So how do you find that balance with giving these streetwear brands the platform to sell, and at the same time maybe protecting these communities that they come from?
I think it really goes both ways, because on one side there's quite as well a few brands, they don't want to be in the big store, right? It's
but
not
you want them.
there's a lot of brands that we want that sometimes we can't buy, and vice versa, right? There's a lot of brands, and we don't have space for all the brands in the store. But I think the point on that is that it goes both ways, like, and when it's authentic and when it makes sense, this is when magic could potentially happen. There's one example that I can think of as Kith and Selfridges, right? Like, we brought it in 2018, 2019, and that was a fairly unknown brand at the time, and I think maybe internationally it's still not so known, but it's now opened its 20th store overall. And the time, the place, we were doing a renovation at the time in Selfridges. We built the skate bowl, which is a place that we have in the store for 7 years now that is just dedicated to skateboarding culture. And Ronnie, the founder of Kith, he really appreciated what we were working on, and then the stars align, and then we protect that brand, and we're proud stockers of that brand in the UK. So that's one example of that, maybe.
Amazing. I mean, Jian, you're very connected to the streetwear space. Do they feel good and accepted?
I just feel like streetwear is it's now just become it's a collaboration, right? It's just become a blanket term for a bunch of things. But I think now streetwear is any sort of, I guess, youth-oriented brand that has a sense of authenticity to it. But I think the spirit that the original, not the original, but people like that wore Stussy in the 90s, they gravitate towards newer brands like Presse and Orally for like the same, or even Evan Kenory, right? A small San Francisco-based label where he's making like 50 of a certain piece. And if you think about the fact that, a Supreme shirt was also limited, right? It's like you're getting that same customer that was buying that kind of skate-oriented aesthetic, but he likes these really handmade artisanal garments for a similar reason, even though he has more buying power, he might be closer to his 50s than his 40s. But that sort of punk aesthetic of supporting a small brand and supporting an artisan is still in that same mindset of I'm supporting the small brand making t-shirts and hoodies out of like a basement somewhere.
Thanks. I wanted to ask kind of more, I wanted to ask the differences maybe you know of between your clients in the US and in UK and broadly more Europe. Do you guys ever talk about the different buying habits of your menswear customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think, not just streetwear, but menswear. It's one of the few things where regional style is important. What bankers in the UK wear is radically different than, there's not a lot of people in New York who, work on Wall Street that are wearing Savile Row suiting. They're probably, more likely
maybe they should be.
But
undenied that, actually.
Yes.
I think, traveling is so important to buyer's job, right? And everything gets influenced by, globally by different vibes that you see, not just on the street, but everywhere in the stores as well. So I think, coming to Hong Kong is a great opportunity to see what's going on and what the street style is here as well. So it's important. Do our buying decision really get infected by what's happening in New York? Probably yes, because New York's on our schedule at least twice a year, and there's a vibrant youth culture, and actually entrepreneurship in the US is really high right now. The other place I would say, like Los Angeles, there's a lot of brands coming out of the West Coast that are really relevant to our customers, and our customers really informed. They get the information in real time, and if something is happening globally, then they want to be a part of it as well, and that's really our job, is to keep up with that, hopefully staying ahead and have the stock, but that's how I would say it works.
Yeah, I second that for sure. For me, I would add, for what I do, what we do at Nordstrom too, for me it's kind of more important to see what people are wearing outside of the fashion world. I'm more interested in what are men wearing at the airport. If I'm at the lounge, it's what are these guys traveling in? If I'm just right now walking on the street, it's what is every other brand that I see that these customers are gravitating towards, and is there an opportunity there that we're currently not tapping into, or are they interpreting this trend in a different sort of way?
Did you see anything when you traveled yesterday?
I have. I'll keep that close to the vest for now, though.
We'll keep our eyes peeled for 2026. Okay. Bosse, do you find that the menswear client is actually a bit more fractured across the world than maybe the womenswear client?
It's a good question, but I think it's the only answer is I don't know, because I don't know everyone. I can only talk, I guess, for our customers and the way that we curate the store. And we really try to have a curated and cohesive assortment across men's, women's, well, across the entire store, really, because we really want customers to spend time with us. And, you know, the fractured, I think, is a strong word. So I think as a store, the job is to curate. And I think that cohesion of a brand mix, of an assortment within a brand is the challenge, and is also what's really exciting. And putting it together is what makes a store unique as well. This is the challenge for him. So like the challenge is as well to not look like every other store in the world, and to find the point of differences in brands, in products, in exclusives, in experiences as well. And I think we always look for something new that we can bring to our stores.
So let's talk about those exclusives.
Yes.
So how do you do that? How do you keep the client excited?
Well, I think there's different ways. One thing was the aforementioned, collaborations, and that's a simple way of doing it.
Having a skateball?
A skateball is another one. It's actually really popular with bankers from Mayfair that just go in their lunch break. It's free to use.
In suits?
They put the tie sort of around, and then
Well
they
done.
go. Yeah, they drop into the ball. But we offer as well lessons for kids from like 6, 7 years old.
And adults, I hope?
Yes,
Great.
adults as well. It's £20, I think. So it's really really affordable, and that's one example. We've got another space that's called the speaker wall, and it's basically like a nightclub grade speaker system on the shop floor that we can, one of the registers, the cash desks we can transform that to a DJ booth, and that's. We had Skepta perform impromptu A$AP Rocky, and those spaces really bring the energy and the vibes to a store. Those are kind of if you call them exclusive experiences. We've got obviously lots of restaurants and stuff as well. On a product point of view, it's about capsules and creating authentic and real, meaningful exclusives. So they can be anything that is a bestseller. Maybe you do it in a different color, to the carryover point from earlier in Sechu. Like that is an upgrade to maybe an existing style that works well. And then the other thing is that discovery sense of brands that maybe aren't in the UK or aren't in London, and getting there first is really important to curate those worlds.
But do you both feel that the menswear client in particular is really searching for these exclusives and these we think about sneaker drops, like those are lines and lines and lotteries. For you as retailers, are you really like pushing those kinds of exclusives for your menswear client specifically?
Yeah, I think it also just depends on what he's coming into the store for and what he's in the mood for. I think, again, going back to the sports example, like golf, tennis are really huge. Or anytime there's, the NBA finals or the Super Bowl. And with all of these brands doing partnerships with sports teams in particular, or in New York when there's the US Open, there's so many different capsules. And of course, like there's brands like Ralph Lauren that are also activating around that. It gives the man in particular like a reason to shop, and he's looking for like newness. I mean, that's why a lot of these brands are doing, collaborations and capsules around specific events like the Ryder Cup, for example.
I was just going to say, like, nobody really needs to come to Selfridges and buy something, right? Like, they need to, the customer really needs to want to come and shop with us, and to, to have the product assortment that seduces is what we're aiming for, and that's, inherently as well, kind of sustainable, because if it's desirable and something that people want to buy and wear, then the cost per wear is really high. It's really low. Sorry. And you have something that will last a long time as well at the same time.
We love boy math.
I think that's also where like customization, tailoring, alterations, and made to measure programs come in, we do that as well, and that attracts specifically a menswear customer. Whether it's a trunk show, doing a made-to-order shoe, the best exclusive is something that truly the customer feels like no one else in the world has because it's literally made for him.
Well, yeah, those traditions are very much more present in the menswear space than it is in the women's space. So this is that's why this market is so different, because you have all of these kinds of different tiers that the men's buyer ultimately expects. So you're going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, loyalty, I think, is really high with a menswear customer in certain brands still today, and again, it's our job as buyers to move them on and to show them what else is out there.
I'm going to have a look at some of these questions that are coming through. Maybe as I look at this, is there anything that you guys can share with us about the World Cup next year?
Well, next year, Nordstrom is turning 125.
Great. Happy birthday.
Big celebration for us. So there's going to be a lot of things that we'll be doing to celebrate, including the fact that the World Cup is in America next year. And like us, it starts in the Pacific Northwest and the West Coast and ends in the East Coast. So it's a very particularly important narrative.
Amazing.
We just started working on it, so it's a little bit too early to share.
A little bit too early. Well, we expect some footballs. Great. So you talked a bit about millennial men earlier. So someone has asked here about the Gen Z client, and can you explain a bit of the differences that you're seeing between the millennial client and the Gen Z, and maybe the Gen Alpha, if they're already shopping with you?
Yeah, both. I mean, youth is for us specifically at Selfridges is really on our side, and I've got an amazing team as well, and there's a lot of members of Gen Z in there already that are able to help to curate that next selection of brands that we offer to our customers. So yes, it's definitely something that we are involved in.
Yeah, I feel like, well, especially for the Gen Z and Gen Alpha customer too, they're becoming even more fluent in the language of fashion, right? It's like there's a whole subculture now that I think is uniquely in the West, where you can be a fashion archive kid, right? It's like you have entire groups of kids defining themselves by certain designers at certain houses. And we speak to that customer with what we've done in our space, which is more of our avant-garde, more forward-pushing, like a selection in key doors, but that's where we have Setchu, that's where we have Shu Tong, and what we've found there is that, people like myself that are aware of these brands, like that customer who identifies as male, has no problem shopping there, but it is more of a gender inclusive play, but it also speaks directly to that more fashion savvy customer directly.
Do you find that a younger customer is more open to that, you're saying?
Oh, 100%.
Is there an attempt to get your older customer to go in these spaces to try these new brands?
Oh, it sits on that same floor, but it's just in general of how we can speak to the fact that the younger customer who is more fashion forward has no problem shopping in that section and requires, our stylists do a great job of being able to introduce a lot of these newer brands to their clients. But in terms of just having the most avant-garde selection there, we find that excites the younger customer, and they'll gravitate towards that naturally.
Amazing. We have someone asking about AI styling tools and whether you guys are starting to consider the use of these digital technologies to apply to offer the customer maybe rules or a way to approach fashion. Is the menswear consumer into that yet? No. No.
I feel like there is a crossover for sure, and yeah, I can't say that we've looked into it in any way of implementation.
So not yet. They want to be on the floor. They want to be touching the clothes and experiencing and trying things on. I had one last question as the time is wrapping up here. I wanted to understand the Asian customer, since we're here in Hong Kong. I wanted to understand how, maybe for you, you're seeing the impact of the diaspora shopping within your walls.
Well, the way that we approach buying for our stores is like we're a British-based store, and we curate our assortment for people that are coming in from all over the world. So I think it's really important to be aware of what's going on elsewhere, and to that knowledge is really important. Do we curate a specific edit for a specific customer? No, we don't do that. We just want to do what's relevant for a Selfridges customer, and I think that doesn't matter where you're from in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I would agree with that for the most part as well. I think, obviously in doors like New York, or if you look at some of our doors on the West Coast, we do have a lot of customers that tend to travel a lot more, and a bit of a tourist customer too. And we don't necessarily cater to that, but we're able to really have more of like a designer selection that speaks to that more globally minded customer, let's say.
Great. Well, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.